Every king in history lost their throne, except for one. Al-Malik, the king. Allah is Al-Malik. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Huwa Allahu alladhi la ilaha illahu Al-Malik. He is Allah, there is no God but Him. Al-Malik, the king. How is Allah's kingship different than our kingship? And how is Allah's kingdom different than the kingdom of the kings of earth? In many different ways. And I'm sure you're going to come up with many that I haven't mentioned. But number one, Allah owns everything. Does the king of England own England? No, not necessarily. If I have a house, does he own my house? If I have a car, does he own my car? No. My point here is that kings and queens are not necessarily owners. They're rulers over subjects, but they don't own what their subjects own. And so there's a difference between a Malik and a Malik. Malik is a king. You're a king over subjects. Malik is an owner. You're an owner over things. But what's interesting is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls himself Malik al-Mulk, the owner of the dominion. So he's not just the king, but he's the owner as well. And so he's different than the kings of earth in that way. Also, his kingship doesn't end. A king's reign may end by a number of things, by death, by abdication, by being overthrown, many other ways. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's kingship doesn't end. And number three, kings need their people. Kings need to be supported by the people that they rule in order to be allowed to rule them. Kings require the buy-in of their people. If the subjects were to say, thank you, we don't want to be your subjects anymore, do you know what that's called? That's called the American Revolution. Here's your tea, we're going to dump it in Boston Harbor, and we don't want to play this game anymore. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need anybody. Number four, kingship is limited by time and space. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's kingdom is not. If a king of a country crosses over the border to another country, are they still their subjects? No. So they're limited, but they're also limited by space. They're limited by their realm. But Allah is the king of everyone and everything. Allah doesn't need buy-in at all. If all of mankind were disbelievers, he would still be the king. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the hadith of Abu Dharr that where the first of you and the last of you and the jinn of you and the human of you all had the most disbelieving hearts, that would not take away from my dominion anything. And what I want you to know about this name, one of the fruits of this name is to try as best as you can to avoid delusions of grandeur. This is something that kings suffer from a lot. You're a king now, and you kind of just assume that you're going to live forever and your mention is going to live forever and you're going to be celebrated forever. People are going to love you forever. And that happens whether a person is the king of a country or the king of pop or the king of a sport. The first time that I went to Egypt, I went to the pyramids, and these pyramids are just incredible. They're incredible structures. A single brick, I'm not sure if they call it a brick, but they're so big, they come up to my shoulder. These things are huge. And until now, they have no idea how these pyramids were built. They're these three large pyramids, and of course, they're not as old as the ones that we have in Sudan, but it's still a good attempt. But ours are smaller. Theirs are much bigger, obviously, but ours are older and we have more pyramids. But anyway, back to our topic. And so you think about all of the resources that must have been mobilized for these pyramids to be created. Decades of work, thousands of slaves, enormous wealth. And at the end of the day, what's it going to be? It's going to be just a grave for one person. So then who is this person? And how long did this person think that he was going to be remembered for? And now when you go, all you find are people who, number one, don't know who this person is, unless they happen to be like an Egyptologist or a history buff or something. If you happen to know who the pyramids were built for, go ahead and comment and flex on us. But, most people have no idea who these pyramids are built for. And, they simply just walk up to the pyramids. That's their goal. They walk up to the pyramids and they stand in front of them and they go like this. And then they go like this. And they take a photo of them holding the pyramids. And I think to myself, like, if these pharaohs, if they were pharaohs, if they saw what these people were doing in front of their pyramids, like, there would be heads rolling. But that's it. That's what their legacy is relegated to. And so when we're talking about the kings of our time, whether it's athletes or whether it's famous entertainers or whether it's kings of industry or whether it's kings of royalty, I want you to just pay attention to how fleeting all of this stuff is. Like, if I were to take sports, and if you take somebody like Michael Jordan, his royal airness, and then you talk to somebody who's 15 years old about Michael Jordan, they won't care. They won't care at all. They won't be interested in the slightest. And so if that's the case with people who have reached the greatest levels of fame that we know of within our lifetimes, then what makes you think that our legacy and our fame is going to last longer? I want to ask you, who's a famous king or ruler in your country's history? And I want to share with you a beautiful poem that talks about King's delusion. And it's written by Percy Shelley. It's a very beautiful poem. It's called Ozymandias. And it speaks to that delusion of kings. It speaks to how fleeting it is. The story of this poem is that there was an artifact that the British Museum had announced that it was going to receive from ancient Egypt. And so he was inspired to write this poem. And it goes, I met a traveler from an antique land who said 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert, near them on the sand. Half sunk, a shattered visage lies. So I want to just stop here for a second. I met a traveler from an antique land. Is this a present, like thriving metropolis? No, it's something that is ancient. 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone, vastness, emptiness. Half sunk, a shattered visage lies. What does half sunk communicate? Is it being well kept? No. When something is half sunk, what does it look like? Abandoned, lifeless, gone. He goes on and continues and he says, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. This is the delusion that kings have. They have that they're not just kings, but that they are the King of Kings. Ozymandias, King of Kings. The Prophet ﷺ said that the most vile name in the sight of Allah is the one who names himself the King of Kings. The only King of Kings is Allah. But Ozymandias, he says, look at my works, ye mighty, and despair. Like, look at my bridges, look at my fountains, look at my libraries, look at my palaces, look at everything. He's challenging you. He's saying, look, ye mighty, look at my works, ye mighty, and despair. Despair means what? Despair means despair that you will ever be able to create anything close to me. You are going to recognize, you are going to submit, you are going to surrender to the fact that I am the King of Kings, and no matter what, you'll never be able to do anything that's close to me. And so then you look, nothing besides remains. There's nothing there. I'm looking, Ozymandias, you're telling me to look, and I don't see anything. I don't see palaces, I don't see hanging gardens, I don't see rivers, I don't see anything. I don't see dams, I don't see anything. Nothing besides remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. That's all. And so this King of Kings, quote unquote, this deluded king who thought his works would live forever, it didn't survive. And so what we realize is that if a person truly wants their work to survive forever, then there is only one audience that can perfectly appreciate what you do forever. Imam Malik wrote a book, and it was incredibly accepted during his lifetime. It's called Al-Muwatta. And success, of course, is going to breed imitation. And so another person wrote a book, and he also called it Al-Muwatta. And so when Imam Malik was told that so-and-so also wrote a book, and he also called it Al-Muwatta, he said something incredibly profound that I want you to take away from this session. He said, مَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ يَبْقَى. He said, whatever is done for Allah, that is what remains. That's what remains. And 1,200 years later, the Muwatta of Imam Malik is the oldest book that we have in the entire Islamic tradition after the Quran. There is no book that we have today in our hands, still in our hands, that is older than the Muwatta of Imam Malik. Whatever is done for Allah, that is what remains. So when you and I, there's a lot of conversation about leaving a legacy, and puts a lot of stress on us. But in reality, the only legacy that will remain forever is what you do for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He accepts it, it will remain. If I try to build a legacy to be appreciated by people, that's not going to last. No matter how hard I try to instill it in the memories of people, that is not a place that is meant to last. You want your legacy to last? Make your audience Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Up until today, everything that we've ever recorded with AlMaghrib Institute, every YouTube series, every online seminar, every Faith Essentials, every lecture has been done without a studio. And as of today, alhamdulillah, we just secured the keys for our first ever AlMaghrib studios at Houston, Texas, inshallah ta'ala. And we're looking forward to taking everything we've ever done and taking it to the next level. That's more YouTube series, high quality than ever before, inshallah ta'ala, more online courses that are relevant, more lectures that are timely and balanced and authentic, based on authentic knowledge that you trust from AlMaghrib Institute and its instructors and its scholars. And so click on the link below to support us, inshallah ta'ala, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you from AlMaghrib Studios very, very soon.